Happy New Year. My name is Dave Rogers, and welcome to Unspoken Tears. Welcome to Unspoken Tears. My name is Dave Rogers, and I am the host of Voice of Men's bi-weekly program, which encourages and supports men having conversations about topics that perhaps are a little bit taboo, a little bit challenging, and a little bit introspective. And today's topic is about bullying. And bullying is a topic that has been in the news in many different areas, particularly about bullying of our youth, our young women, our young men, and also bullying in the workplace. And today I have the privilege of chatting with the co-founder and president of Voice of Men 360, Mr. Sivam. And it's going to be a conversation. And that's one of the things that is very prevalent in Voice of Men 360 is having conversation, having dialogue, and exploring different areas that are challenging for men, that perhaps most men are more comfortable in their cave, not discussing, not exploring, and not challenging beliefs, rules, values. And that's one of the things that has been very uplifting about the organization, the projects that we get involved with, and the conversations that we encourage people to have. So, Voice of Men Unspoken Tears is on every other week on Saturday at 10 a.m. And we pick topics that can be somewhat in the shadow, not openly talked about. We've talked about recently sex trafficking, pornography, addictions, and many men right now are suffering with these addictions, these behaviors, without an avenue, without a support mechanism to have constructive, safe conversation. And so I'm really happy to be here today. Will Sivan be joining me shortly? Hopefully he will be joining me on screen to discuss a little bit about bullying from a Sri Lankan perspective and also as an immigrant to Canada. And my personal experience with bullying goes back many, many, many decades. And it is quite fascinating that some of the traumas that men live with were triggered in their adolescence. And some of the examples is different types of abuse, different types of bullying, different types of harassment that might have occurred in primary school or in junior public school, where people teased, people physically beat, people abused, people taunted. Those would be examples of bullying that today, fortunately, it is becoming a topic of training, of discussion, and of equipping not only teachers, yet also students and professionals with some of the tools to be able to have an intervention when they notice or experience bullying. In my research for today's show, I went and spoke to a couple of the educators here in Toronto, and there really is a very strict guideline about bullying. Bullying is unacceptable. It's not to be, it's very cut and dry. When there is bullying would not exist in our schools. And if you as a teacher or an administrator or as a student see it and witness it, there's intervention tools. Stop is one of the key ones. And that might be the one takeaway that our listeners today see is stop. To have the confidence to just say stop. If you notice bullying, stop. If you're even in the presence, you could come over and provide an intervention to the bully. If you've noticed that there's picking on, that there's physical abuse, that there's hollering, just stop. Now, does that take a certain amount of confidence? Yes, it takes confidence, it takes self-esteem, and perhaps even a little bit of training. In my training that I took was in Singapore at United World College, which is a fine school. Shout out to all of our friends at United World College. who brought in experts in bullying for not only the teachers, for the parents to be able to discern or notice if their child is being bullied and to have the conversation. And so today, the intention is to have a conversation about bullying. If you've got questions or if you've got comments, feel free to put them in the comment section. This is being broadcast on YouTube, on Facebook. We're utilizing some of our partnerships. I have a feeling this will be broadcast over Lead Pedal Radio and in a conversation about bullying. Now, I'm wondering whether our co-host today, Mr. Sivan, will be joining me on screen. Hopefully he hears me and he'll come out from behind the screen to have a conversation about bullying. If not, I'll continue to share some of the research that I did here, because in Toronto, Canada, bullying is something that we're aware of it going on, yet if you do notice it going on, I'm inviting you to be curious about different ways to develop preventive strategies, preventive approaches. One would be to reach out. If you are currently being bullied, or if you are witnessing bullying, the group can be quite impactful to taking on the tormentor, to confront the tormentor. And it does take some of the courage and bravery of the individual to A, speak up, B, to be curious and to go do some research, because there are resources available to help out somebody who's being bullied or a family that's being bullied. I go back and regress that some of my first exposure to bullying was in the form of being a bully. As a young child, I had a number of times where I bullied other kids. I bullied them by teasing them and even physically getting into fights. That was one of the modus operandi I had as a young child. It was to be a bit of a bully. And then, of course, what comes around goes around. I got bullied. And when I got bullied, it was quite traumatic. I definitely remember the day at school where a kid in grade 9 sort of picked on me. I was in grade 6. And I came home and spoke to my mom and dad. And my dad actually took quite a fascinating approach to it. He went and checked out who the person was who bullied me. And then he sort of dragged my butt to go knock on the door of the house of the person who was bullying me and had a conversation with his father. And his father was quite pissed off at his son. And I have a feeling laid a pretty big hiding on him. Yet that was an action that my dad did that I'll never forget. And that, again, it's something that happened when I was about 6 or 7 years old. Being bullied, being kicked in the groin by an older kid, and then getting some bruising around there, and then having the courage to share with my father, and then my father taking an action that quite surprised me. That was openly going and knocking on the door of the family of the person who bullied me. And so that is one of the things that I have a feeling that in a case of bullying, and if you are somebody who's gone through bullying, it questions your self-esteem and your self-confidence. And so welcome, Sivam. How are you today?
Very well, Dave. Thank you. It's very happy morning. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the host. Actually, I mean, sorry, not the host, the guest. But we will be talking, and I will be sharing my perspective and my own experiences since from my childhood.
Did you experience bullying in Sri Lanka, or did you experience bullying in Canada, or both?
Both, I would say both. Even I was bullying. I wouldn't know that age, or I wasn't aware about bullying, actually, even the word. So it's teasing and doing some kind of fun with the friends, but we didn't know, or I wasn't aware how that some kind of impacts, or how that negatively impact in other person's lives, for many years. Though I was bullied for many times for a number of reasons, but for until I would say grade 8 or 10 back home, it wasn't really hurting me. But when I came to Canada, whatever we have experienced, because it's totally different or totally new environment, so it's started to hurt. Still, I can feel it.
So let's go back just so that our listeners get a little bit of clarity around bullying. So you talked about you were teased by others or you teased others. So in your life, were you a bully and did you have experiences of being bullied, or is your experience strictly being bullied?
Both.
Okay,
Both.
so that's what I want to share with people right now, that's what's important to be aware of, is that depending on your surroundings, depending on your environment, in many ways you may have been the perpetrator, you might have been the bully. And when I reflect on my life, I think of the times that I might have bullied people. In fact, even communication right now, sometimes my communication can come across as being bullying. And so, Sivan, maybe when can you remember maybe the first time you were bullied and how did it make you feel?
Uh, it was like an awkward moment. I just want to make sure that when I was saying like a bullied or I was bullying, we didn't go that extreme, like somebody really hurting, or we didn't really have any extreme situations, but just on the general surface. But even though we had here and there, it's really sometimes it hurts right away, and so sometimes when I go back, it hurts later on. So the first time, I don't know, maybe when I was maybe 6 or 7 or 8 years old, something like that. So that time I had a situation, but it's just a wording or just some kind of funds from friends, between friends. But we always have some awkward moments, but we didn't really take it seriously. So sometimes people they may take it in bad ways or in negative ways. It's teasing or bullying. But the first time I remember, I think when I was grade 5 or somewhere around that, or grade 7 or 8, somewhere around that, we started to see things happening, even bullied by girls, or even bullied by some friends, like the seniors. So it's a really hurting moment. That's what I would say.
So this is something that I want to highlight to our audience today. So bullying can have a full spectrum of types of ways that bullying. It can be taunting, it can be teasing, it can be physical abuse, it can be sexual abuse, it can be picking on, it could be taking, it could be microaggressions. So the realm of bullying is quite extreme. The frequency, it can be every day. Can you imagine going to school every day and being bullied by the kid who takes your lunch money, or punches you, or totally shuts you down whenever you speak? So the idea here is that bullying can be incredibly torturous, it can be traumatic, it can be like there's no way out. And so something I don't want to downplay is the severity that bullying can do and the hardship that it can trigger, the lack of self-esteem, self-confidence, no way out, physical torture. I just recently had a conversation with a coaching client. He was just saying every single day at 4 o'clock, his bully used to beat the crap out of him every day. And when he went to therapy, 50 years later, he went to therapy, and he was asked by his therapist, who would you like to have a conversation? And he wanted to have a conversation with his mother. He wanted to know, why the hell did you let him bully me every single day? Why? And so it was like a volcano erupted. Because if you've gone through that type of traumatic experience, we have find a way often as a youth or as a child to survive, simple survival, but it's suppressed. And it's that survival and suppression that ultimately does get triggered. And bullies, people who are bullied tend to be a bully because they find another victim that they can feel better. So we're creating the society of bullying and bullying that is truly epidemic. And so today we wanted to have a conversation and also to let you know, folks, is there are different ways to communicate. There are different ways to explore bullying, and there is information and there is opportunities to prevent the continual journey of bullying and bullied. And
Yeah,
one of the things that you
I do
mentioned,
remember.
yes.
I do remember one thing, the extreme, or I still can't remember exactly the days and times and everything. Like I, you know, when I was, I would say, probably 78 or maybe 10 or 12 years old. That time we shouldn't be saying any words like anything related to harsh word or anything. So I mistakenly, or I said word, uh, and then one other friend picked up from that, and then he said, you know what, I will tell to you everybody, even the teacher especially. He doesn't care about the friends and other people, but he said, I will tell the teacher, I will complain to the teacher. So I was so scared. Every day, every single day, I had to go with that fear. And so he was asking money. It's very funny. And now I'm saying, but every day I had to pay a couple of cents, you know. But after sometimes, I mean, now we are very, very good friends. We know each other. But that time, even he didn't know. But he was using that. And then I didn't know. I didn't ask any help. I couldn't seek, or I couldn't. I didn't know how to seek help. Let's put it that way. So
So
I was.
let's since today's show is about suicide prevent, or sorry, about bullying prevention, also some strategies around that. And it's interesting, my Freudian slip about suicide prevention, and today we're talking about bullying prevention. There are similarities in the actions you can take, and so it gets worse when you feel you're all alone. And so, ladies and gentlemen, anyone who's watching this today, one of the first ideas around prevention is knowing you're not alone, is that you can talk to perhaps a parent, perhaps a friend, perhaps a teacher, perhaps an administrator or principal. Go online. There are preventions. There is bullying.ca. So there's ways for you to reach out today that is different than ever before. And when it gets worse, it's often when you choose or you feel that you're all alone. And so, Sivan, maybe you could share a little bit when you came to Canada, when maybe you did feel all alone because you didn't know where to turn. What were some of the story behind that story and the way that you dealt with being bullied when you came to Canada?
Yeah, and before that, I also want to share one thing that when my daughter was around 6, 7 years old, she was bullied by another girl. And so that's how I could connect now, the fears or, the scary moments that she could carry. So we talked to the teacher, and even the teacher talked to the girl too, the kid. However, it's happening. It's not going 100% away, but it's happening. Sometimes even the teacher won't listen. Sometimes, I wouldn't say like all the time, every time, but sometimes they won't listen. So that's the hard part. When I came to Canada, and when I started my school back here, it's because we didn't have, the cultural shock we had to carry on that. So every day we went to school with so much fear. And I wouldn't say I wasn't I was bullied that much, but I could feel the sense of bullying surroundings, my friends, myself, because the cloth, the food, the environment, everything. Even the biggest fear was the language. So we couldn't stand on that. But later on, when I was doing some kind of research, I came to know that back in 1992 and in 90s, there was a couple of hangs. I'm talking about boys hangs. So it was developed, or it's gradually built from those bullying from other countries or other boys, other peers, I would say. So as an immigrant, we went through a lot of challenges. It's not easy, but nowadays, at least we do have a lot of resources that we can go for seeking, or we can go for help. But back those days, it was kind of very hectic. So even we wouldn't able to share with our friends, or they wouldn't know how to help. Even we couldn't go to our teachers or our parents or our some relatives, because they wouldn't have any idea. They don't understand the system, so they wouldn't have any idea. So because they always scared or afraid to confront the system, or even take to the teachers. So that's so much scary moments, though. I do see, I hear a lot of some of the deaths over bullying too, in my own communities too.
In fact, the program that I went to in Singapore at United World College, and they brought in an expert from Australia, and his presentation to the parents and the teachers was really based on the difference between the way boys bully, which tends to be more of a physical, verbal type of bullying, confrontational, whereas girls, they actually tend to do more cyber bullying. And that's the 24/7 bullying, and that's the bullying that we have seen and witnessed over the last couple of years, where young girls are committing suicide because of the insistent 24/7 beating up online, the ruining reputations, the making Photoshop and teasing, and that is creating a knock-on effect about people's self-image, self-esteem, self-confidence. That is one of the major reasons why bullying these days is being highlighted, and conversations are encouraged, and resources are available. Yet when you're in it, you often feel you're all alone. And that's what a perpetrator tends to do, is they want to make you feel all alone. If you say and speak to anyone, I'm going to get you, I'm going to make it worse. And so they try to isolate you from everybody. And so that isolation forces you to be a victim. And it's that victim where you live in doubt. You make excuses and you blame. And so that victim strategy is what a perpetrator or tormentor attempts to drive. And in the research that was done out of Australia, is that young girls and ladies do it with such venom, 24/7 online. As soon as you wake up, as soon as you go to bed, it's like you're being attacked. Whereas the distinction is that boys tend to face, maybe a little beat up, give me your money, which still has the effect of isolation, self-esteem, self-confidence getting brutalized. And perhaps that's what we're saying today, is that inviting people, if you know of somebody who's being bullied or you're being bullied, because bullying goes on into the office. It is a big problem in offices all around the world, where the person who moves up the ladder tends to be the one who bullies his way or bullies her way through getting decisions made, and doesn't worry about the feelings or thoughts of other people, because they're so focused and they're driven. And so it is a conversation today. I'm glad we're having it, Sivam. Thank you so much for joining Unspoken Tears, because it is a topic that is relevant in so many people's lives. And we want to welcome the conversation, the respectful dialogue. Anyone who's had the experience of being bullied or is a bully, we're inviting you to be reflective. One of the things that was beautiful about you sharing, Sivam, about maybe when you first were not so confident with English. And if our listeners today are not so confident with their abilities in English or other languages, take the moment to write something down. Write yourself a letter. One of the things that's very impactful is that one of the strategies, in fact, if you're being bullied, write a little letter that you want to say to your bully, because then it gives you the confidence. And it might start with, stop. My name is, and you've actually created a little poem, but it creates a separation. Can you imagine using a journal as one of the tools to assist you in dealing with bullying? You might write an article. It might get posted on bullyingcanada.ca, which is a resource we're inviting you to go and explore it. I'm not saying you got to get totally involved in it, yet these days there are resources. Are there other resources that you're familiar with, Sivam, or other strategies that assisted you in bullying?
Well, a couple of things, but also I want to share the bullying. If you take a look at it and someone its life or a couple of people's lives, they do take it in other way. The other side of the spectrum is they do take revenge. They were bullied for so long, or it was affected so badly, so deeply for many years, even one incident, and they when they become a older matured person, they carry that, and they also want to take a revenge in a different ways. Not only the same person, they couldn't go back to the same person. Sometimes they do, but they do take revenge on other people's. But I was it's very relatable things. I was watching a movie last night. It's an Asian movie, it's a Tamil movie, but the point is the content is that one of the boys, I mean, they were twins and then they were separated by parents, and then one of the boys was saying, I was bullied because always people or boys friends were teasing I wasn't, I mean, my father was it's divorced or escape from the family. So that started, or that built gradually the fear, but that fear turns into anger, and then that anger started to take a revenge on people. So he carried that anger so long, so he sees that, okay, you know what, I can protect myself with this fighting back anyone. So he became a gangster or leader. So it can turn in many ways too. The point, I mean, the question was asking, Dave, I talked to we talked to our daughter and then said, you know what, whatever happens, it doesn't matter small or big. Even if you cannot go to the teacher, first thing, it's happened at high school. So you had to able to talk to a teacher, tell to a teacher, don't worry about anything, just talk to a teacher. If not, just say anything. So whenever she comes back in the evening, we ask what happens, today. So these small things can give some kind of hope, some kind of confidence to the person, to the individual, to the kid. And also, we have to educate ourselves what's going on around that. I think we have a guest, a different guest. She can also share her perspective too. Nicole. So those are small things, I would say, Dave, we can take. We can look into that. But the sad part is that even though we are sharing so much information, there are so much resources out there, the bullying is still happening. I hear so much stories every single day, even in India too. So it's just so much happening.
Well, the statistics, let's just give a little statistics. And I think these statistics are grossly underestimated. At least 1 in 3 adolescents have reported being bullied, 33%. Almost half of Canadian parents have reported that their child has been a victim of bullying. And that in the regular school world, every 7 minutes on a playground and once every 25 minutes in a classroom, some type of bullying is going on. And so, in the majority of cases of bullying of children, that if somebody intervenes within 10 seconds, the bullying behavior evaporates. And so, that might be, again, one takeaway today is practice that idea of stop. And in fact, when we do some training in assertiveness training or confidence building, simply standing up, taking a deep breath, and stop could be something that would be a tool to learn today. And it is about developing some tools, some techniques, some strategies to be able to be part of the awareness and prevention of bullying. And so, Sivan, where did you want to navigate to next on our talk? Did you want to talk about any bullying that surprises people? Perhaps, I think one of the things that you were asking about, do men get bullied by women? And in Sri Lanka or in India, what has been some of your experience or insights into that area?
Well, I would say a number of times happen at the school, I mean, with the girls. But when I go back to now, it's a kind of fun ways between boys and girls. But also, I did see some extreme cases I came across later on, but not at the exactly time or moment. But later on, I came across even between the teachers too. So the leaders or even the boys too. So the male and female, there are no difference. But what our platform focuses, especially the men, how they are bullied by women or other even systematic bullying too. So even my recent years, I would say, even after come to Sri Lanka, Canada, and at the school I was bullied, but with a girl too, by a girl, and also nowadays I see some kind of bullying is going around between male and female. It's not just within the home settings, domestic one, but also outside at the workplace, as you said earlier. If the hierarchy or the leader is a woman, then it's easier to tease or easier to bullying the male partner or male co-worker. So, and also even marriages and other settings too. So it's a really happening out there. That's what we want to create awareness. So most of us thinks that men's, they are strong, they don't get hurt by bullying, but women's when they get really aggressive or even some real incidents, we get hurt, and it affects deeply. Sometimes or many times we don't show it in mentally or physically or emotionally, but it affects differently later on in life. It's happening though.
Absolutely, Sivan. Great point. I want to stress this to our listeners and our viewers today is that the traumas, the experiences we had as children, it does create a survival mechanism. And if we don't know what to do, it goes and it gets suppressed. Yet it gets triggered. It gets triggered in our teens. It gets triggered in our 20s, our 30s, our 50s, our 60s, all the way on. That sense of abandonment, lack of trust, low self-esteem, low self-confidence. It leads to very, at the ultimate level, and I've noticed this particularly with elderly men, to a sense of just wanting to die. And so if you are curious today to start exploring the early traumas, the early bullying, the early isolation experiences, and the way that you dealt with it. Some would deal with it with a very aggressive, angry, violent way. Others will deal with it with a very suppressed, docile, self defecating way. And so when we talk about bullying, one of the things that is a myth is that, oh, we should just let kids be kids and they could take care of it themselves. Well, no, the myth there is that children have got to learn to stand up for themselves. We, as parents or as mentors or as people who are curious about making systemic changes, would be wise to encourage our children to speak up. It takes courage to speak up. Encourage them to be brave to speak up, to call something out, to ask questions, to have dialogue, to explore the pain that it might be triggering, so that they can not necessarily have this whole growth of anger, hostility, fear manifesting in their life, that they're going to go to bravery and courage to ask, to speak up, to engage in conversation that would be very useful in their growth. Because one of the things that I'd really encourage any parents that are questioning it, encourage your child to go and talk to the teacher, talk to maybe the monitor of the class or the grade, or even the vice principal or the principal. That ability and confidence and self-esteem to go and talk to an adult is something that could be nurtured. And it might be a way to really deal with bullying in a whole new way for your child and also for you. And so that's one of the myths. Another myth is children should hit back, only harder. I think you would disagree with that one, Sivam. What's your view of bullying builds character, or bullying children should hit back, only harder? What's your view on that one?
Well, it happens, and then I did see that, but the problem is that sometimes when it goes to their parents or it goes to the teachers, I mean, by default, that individual will be hurt. There's no doubt about that. I mean, both individuals, doesn't matter any age, but when that complaint or the situation takes to the next level, to the reporting or to the police or even to the next person, it's getting to the next level. So it's really if they are able to talk to, or I mean have an open discussion and understand each other, that shouldn't be a problem. But hurting, we never know how that will impact the other person, though. So it's really we don't have any control over it. So that's what I would say.
Another myth is sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me. When you hear that, what pops up for you there, Sivam?
No, it doesn't. I mean, it does. The names actually, it's not true. The names, some of the names that I cannot really say it here, but some of the names in our own language, when we hear that, even with our same group of people or same community, it will hurt. It hurts, and also that language or that tone will translate to the other person will have a different meaning. So it hurts.
And it not only hurts, it can leave scars that really leave a legacy that is part of what I've studied and I enjoy researching, is called transgenerational trauma. And so the traumas that my grandmother experienced being an immigrant coming to Canada from China, and the scars that I remember about her being abused and her being bullied and her being subjected to incredible pain manifested itself in a violent behavior at times when it was triggered that led me as a child to be very confused that my grandmother was so kind to me, yet to one of her daughters, she was so mean and so angry and so hatred full. And so that element of transgenerational trauma that can be passed on by racial taunts or vicious teasing leads to a self-esteem issue that when triggered can be, it's like a different person. And so if you've had those experiences where it can be triggered quite often with types of addictions or addictive behaviors or self-medicating is one of the ones that alcoholism is something that people will drink themselves into passing out because those words, those taunts that were from external, yet then become internalized. And I've seen it where people in a drunken stupor, their self-talk, I'm so stupid, I'm so dumb, I'm just a effing lazy. And so like the swear words become infused into a demeanor that they pass out because that's probably the best thing that could happen to them, because the other side of it is they go take that out on somebody else and they go beat up somebody. And this goes back both sides. This could be men to women, men to men, women to men. And the women to men part, because you were asking me about CFC, Vaughn, yes, I've actually worked with men who were being physically abused by their wives. Like the pots and pans would be flying. It got to one point where she attacked him with a knife. And he was bullied as a child. And he was also taught you never hit a woman, which is probably a good thing in his case, yet he had to learn to defend himself from a woman who was attacking him physically. And he also had to work on his self-esteem, that was this the type of relationship that he wanted to stay in? And so these were deep transformational issues that were triggered from some teasing or sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. A beautiful word. And in fact, I have a feeling in Sri Lanka, when you were a young child, you learned, you had a class, English class, and it was called spelling. And so our words create spells. And if you look at the word words, W-O-R-D-S, look at it in reverse. Do you know the word?
No. Sword?
It's sword. Sword. S-W-O-R-D. And so our words are like swords.
Yes.
And those swords can cut deep.
Yeah.
And so, again, folks, we're inviting you today. Bullying has maybe one idea that you had when you came today into this chat, yet as you leave today, or even if you ask questions, and we thank you very much for your kind feedbacks, Roz, and a few others that are adding some comments, and actually feel free to ask questions, because this dialogue is a dialogue, a conversation that Voice of Men 360 is about having a 360 perspective. And the way we looked at bullying before we came, and maybe the way we look at bullying as we leave, might be different. We've changed our perspective. And that's what we're inviting. And that's what Voice of Men 360 is looking to do with topics that perhaps if we have more conversation and we are able even to speak if we've been triggered with rage or upset or disagreement, instead of lashing out and attacking, because that's what we learned to survive. Today we can ask questions even questions that we are vulnerable with.
There are a couple of comments from the audience, though. Brian Morrison, he's watching actually. Very interesting, as there is a massive homophobic bullying, which then leads to suicide prevention. And I still remember the names of every bully in my childhood, and it led to suicide attempts as a young teenager. So there are stories, it's happening as we are speaking. At the same time, what I was saying before, within the family setting, especially between husband and wife, the bullying, not only physical abuse, but the actual root of the cause, I believe, it is starting from bullying, though. Start to say something negatively or in some words that carries with the man itself for many years. Let's say, for example, any sexual relationship or sexual parts or sexual names that very hectic, and that affects not only the same person but also the future life. Future life means the kid's life, the next generation. So it goes pretty much everywhere. So that's what I want to share.
I agree with you, and thank you so much for the comments. And it's therapeutic actually to write a comment, and it's self-healing for anyone who's listening today to write a text or to ask a question, because I agree so much with the comment that you remember every bully's name. You're right. I remember every bully's name. I remember them from age 6 and age 10 and 11. I remember them. I could see them. I spoke about them yesterday with my mother as I was doing some preparation for today. I actually talked to her about the experience when my dad went to, his name was Jerry's dad's house, and knocked on the door and pointed down at a 6-year-old who had been beaten up by a 12-year-old and said, I just want to let you know your son sort of smacked around my son today. And my dad demonstrated a lot of courage and bravery, and also scared the heck out of me. It was like, I'm embarrassed, I'm full of shame, and we're doing this. And I'm grateful he did that. Again, he demonstrated something about bravery and courage that left not only a memory, it left a cellular memory. That's what you do when you're being bullied, is you stand up, you address it. He had no idea what the father would do. Yet that's the invitation we're sharing with you today too. Yes, sir.
Hey, Dave. There's a couple of comments from Nicole. Bullying has many lifelong effects not addressed. Words can never be taken back. Oftentimes,
let's go through each of those. Slowly say it, clearly say it, and then let me give a feedback to it. Because when I read it, thank you very much, Nicole. These are great comments, and I would like to dance with them a little bit, because first of all, acknowledge, and this again, I'm sharing a little bit of in Voice of Men 360 with facilitation and with coaching and with mentoring. You want to first honor the person for adding the comment, and that's why I want to say thank you. Yet we also want to be able to give a little bit of feedback to create a dialogue, not to put the person down, to honor it, yet also potentially to give a little spin to it so it can serve. So go ahead and say the first one.
Bullying has many lifelong effects, not addressed.
So bullying, you're right, it can have long-term positive or negative effects. That's the slight tweak to it. If it's suppressed and it builds up as anger and rage and isolation, then it can pop up like a volcano. If it is nurtured and honored, it can be transformed into compassion. Second one.
Words can never be taken back.
The beautiful thing when I read that, and thank you very much, Nicole, words can never be taken back. And often a bully who might have been teasing somebody isn't even aware the effect they have on other people. Like that's one of the things as I reflect back as a teenager or as a youth, because I was a bully for a while. I don't know how many people I actually bullied and actually left with some scars. I've had some feedback that some of them still hate me, and I didn't even know what I did. So from a apologetic perspective, I would like to like humbly ask for forgiveness. And if I ever did hurt or say something to offend you, I apologize. Now, that doesn't clear it, yet if I did have the opportunity to speak to the person and apologize, there can be a healing component to that. And getting into a space where if you have hurt somebody, one of the things that can be very collectively healing, and this is one of the things about the myth, there have always been bullies and there always will be. The thing is, one of your comments was many people who are bullied become bullies. Many people who are bullied become bullies and then potentially become advocates for kindness.
That's what she said on the next one. Oftentimes, the ones bullied becomes the bully.
And then what I wanted to add to that, and some of them also become the advocates for let's work together to change the attitudes and be part of prevention of bullying by bringing it to the light, not letting it grow in the dark. And so these are just ways this is called verbal Aikido. And Aikido is a martial arts from Japan, which is based on circular movements. So when someone strikes you, you don't strike back at them. You allow that energy to be brought in and then released. And so verbal Aikido is something I plant a little seed today with people. Aikido is a great martial art from Japan, but verbal Aikido is a way to bring in the energy, yet do a circular movement and give it a new meaning. And for someone in the audience today, maybe that's just going to be something that triggers curiosity. Maybe they'll go and start studying Aikido. And that's one of the reasons why Sivam and I and RJ and Tolu and Dipchan and the group at Voice of Men 360 here in Canada, International Men's Day around the world, are committed to is conversations, dialogue, compassion, curiosity, and inviting feedback to assist people with the self-healing, perhaps a little bit of self-kindness, perhaps even a little bit of playfulness in, as this lovely lady, Shelley Heimel, a leading expert in bullying, says, let's work together to change attitudes about bullying. After all, bullying is not a discipline issue. It's a teaching moment. Something
we
to think about.
Also shared, let's not forget cyberbullying, possibly one of the most dangerous forms.
And we had a brief moment where we talked about cyberbullying, which particularly, if you look at the differences between bullying for men and bullying for girls or boys and girls, cyberbullying, particularly for women, is incredibly brutalizing because it is that 24/7 self-attacking, mutilating way that girls will go after somebody 24/7. So cyberbullying, again, inviting people to be curious about it. The key points that we talked about preventing is that inviting the courage and bravery of the person who's being bullied to talk to an adult or talk to a bullyingcanada.ca or a counselor or a teacher or a principal, feeling that they're not alone, because it's happening so often these days. Yet for the person who's being bullied, there's this isolation, this no one will understand, or they've got pictures of me, or they're threatening to put naked pictures of me out there. And these are things that create a shame, embarrassment, and such an energetic charge that it does take courage and bravery for the person to speak up. And so that element, folks, is something that we're going to continue working with It's not only happened to young people, it's even happening to middle-aged and even seniors these days. So being aware of cyber scams and cyberbullying, these are relatively new, yet it's a process that we can collectively, if we work together at having conversation and developing prevention programs to make a positive impact.
I would ask you one question before we wrap up. Then we can, give us some symbol steps or symbol ways that those men are going through some systematic bullying, and they feel very down or lack of confidence. How to handle themselves and also the surroundings. So if we can give some feedback or some of your ways, at least they can, because single fathers, men out there, they are going through so much pain. We cannot even put them in words, those emotional triggers. So if we can share some of these ways, please.
Thank you, Sivam. It's a great question. And gentlemen, ladies, listeners, viewers, what are some ways to deal with the emotions of feeling alone, about feeling hurt, about beating yourself up? Are there some approaches? Well, one of the first things to be aware of is that, yes, you have to believe. So if I was to use some of our native Canadian or Indigenous cultures, there's a truth. The truth is that you're more than what you are today. And as you grow, as you're willing to grow, as you're willing to be curious, as you're willing to explore a greater you than today, that's a truth. Now, you can look at the untruth, which is that you're lousy or a loser, you're a failure. And for me, that's a learning process. So it's not about being perfect. It's about being part of a journey that's progress. And so my first tip is change your environment. Men tend to have this relationship with a cave. And so if you're living in your cave and you're drinking your scotch and you're getting grumpy and sleeping off your loneliness, explore a nice walk in nature. Bundle up if you're in Canada, put on a scarf, put on a hat, put on some boots, and go for a little walk in nature. Notice the trees. Notice that they're not very vibrant and colorful right now. That's actually, it might be some green, it might be some white because of the snow, yet change your environment. Yet more importantly, when you go for a walk, it moves your body. And when you move your body, you start to release natural endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, which are what get released when you play video games, when you give someone a hug, when you get exercise. And so this is a natural way of enlivening your spirit, your body, and your mind. And when you breathe, deep breath, it cleanses the toxins in your system, especially if you've been sitting there drinking scotch or red wine. And that brings vitality, because we want to start a new relationship with vitality. So change your environment. Number two is really about start journaling. I'm inviting you to go write some poetry. Go do some painting, some drawing, something that you used to like doing as a child, and rekindle a hobby that you can grow with. A hobby that maybe when you were a kid, your parents said, or your grandparents or your teachers said, you can't make a living doing that. Well, if you go look around the world right now, many of the things that we were told, I was told, my generation of 60 plus, were told that you can't make money as a writer, as an artist. Well, these days, NFTs, you can make millions of dollars. Journaling is also about poetry. It's about drawing. It's about creativity. You have the creative skills that were probably suppressed because the school system kicked it out of me when I was 6, 7, and 8 years old. And I've just rekindled it in the last year. Number three, is be curious. Sincere curiosity. Ask questions. Ask questions. Go online. Google. There's actually a beautiful little quiz that you could do. It's called Ikigai. Ikigai. It's 4 questions. You can go and Google it. You can answer those questions. That will start changing the neuroplasticity of your mind. It will start looking at new possibilities. That 2022 can be the best year of your life if you want it to be. So journaling, curiosity. Number 4, change your diet. Your diet has a lot to do with how you're feeling. If you actually start to put good fuel into it, good water into it, good vegetables into it, combine that with some flexibility, some exercise, some stretching. These are ways to move your body and to get into a tune, a rhythm. And that will be so important if you're going to have the best year of your life about nutrition and vitality. Number 5, be grateful. No matter what you're doing and where you're at right now, you can find something to be grateful for. I remember when I was in the lowest lows, the pits of pits, the one step from suicide, there was still some things that I could be grateful for. And so if you start that gratitude journal day by day, if you could simply go for a walk in nature, wow, that's probably a great thing to be grateful for. So that would be 5 or 6. And then my little bonus one is be kind. Be kind to you. Do one nice, kind thing to yourself. And the kindness could be look at the mirror and say, hey, practice makes progress. So this would be a little strategy that maybe you've heard it all before, yet perhaps you've heard it in a new way today. Perhaps it's not crossing your shoulders and saying, I know that, I know that, I know that. Maybe we'll use that beautiful quote from Lao Tzu. To know and not to do is not yet to know. And so if I've said things today and you're sort of sitting there and saying, I know that, I know that, do you know it from the 2023 perspective of you? When it's not so much about knowing, it's about experimenting. And so, Sivam, those would be my tips for the day. Unspoken Tears, we're with you every second week. And I appreciate Sivam stepping in there and being part of the session today. I really appreciate the feedback and comments of our listeners. If there is somebody that you would like to share this with, please share it. Add some comments. Give us some ideas for future shows. And if you'd like to appear, if you know somebody that you would like to appear, send that person's name or details into Sivam or myself. And we'd definitely love to see Unspoken Tears. Unspoken Tears will be also on live pedal radio. It will also be shown in Facebook and YouTube. Come join our YouTube community. And I've got a community also, Continual Shift, with Dave Rogers, where I interview and love to connect with people and make a difference. And Sivam, is there any announcements or future programs? The one that I would definitely be highlighting today would be February 13th. We're going to be running a mega show on the Day of Love and Oneness. We've had a nice pivot with our groups in India and Australia, the Global Dialogue Foundation, that has really been moving forward with the United Nations to encourage the Day of Love and Oneness as an expansion of Valentine's Day. And so we'll be running about 3 or 4 hours on the 13th of February. So please, if you'd like to perhaps be part of that, you could send a message into Sivam, and we might do an interview for you or someone that you would love to hear from. And we're expanding Voice of Men 360, International Men's Day. We've got a number of programs that are exciting, inspiring, yet also quite challenging, because we're talking about topics that men find quite vulnerable, quite harsh to face, yet we're looking to bring a new face to it, a new way of expressing kindness. So, Sivam, you want to share maybe one or two of the upcoming events or drives? I noticed that you've reignited the drive, the contribution, the charitable work that Voice of Men is 360 is doing. What would you like to share?
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate that, Dave, because this is a very important topic. There are many dimensions when it comes to bullying. Uh, Probably we will continue to the next month too, because we need to dig actually deeper. There are systematic bullying and other areas that we had to touch upon. And thank you. I really appreciate that. We do have a couple of announcements, especially the donation drive that we are doing. A special campaign from December 22nd to January 9th, but actually we extended to January 31st. Self-care for 4 indigenous men that we are asking or seeking to donate, or if ever, however you want to contribute. Gift cards, deodorants, razors, socks, hand towels, whatever the way you can do, please do and reach out to us and then let us know how you want to contribute. And also, we're going to have a couple of other special shows, especially that the one of the shows, January 29th, the special panel discussion, international panel discussion that will be talking about the healthy generation, creating safe schools, that no violence in at schools. So this is recognizing the day, the International Day of Violence Against Men and Boys. And this year theme will be, the theme is eradicating violence in schools. So that is one. And also we will be celebrating Tamil Heritage Month this 22nd from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And also, like Dave said, we will be having a mega show on February 13th. So we are looking forward. And then our regular shows on top of that. So thank you, Dave.
Thank you. And to everybody, please visit our Facebook group, our social media, and connect and look for ways to have your voice heard also. And that's one of the things that we're really looking forward to, is this idea of diversity and inclusion. Very much a BIPOC generation. Black, Indigenous, people of color are very welcome. And we really are looking forward to a fantastic 2022. So please join, please comment, please like, please share, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the other side. Back to you, Sivam, for the last word.
All right. Also, we're going to have a men's group meeting, the Open Up Peer Support Group next Tuesday from 6 to 7:30. That's very important. So this is only for men, by men. So please share this information, and then you can see the Zoom link on our website and also on our Facebook page and group. So please share with your male friends so they can join. All right, and we will be wrapping this with this information. All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody.